What is going on, YouTube? This is your boy, Mighty Fine. I am back. It has been a while, but we're here and we're doing it. I'm back with my weekly analysis series. If you guys have tuned into this before, you know what's going on. If you haven't, what I'm doing is just high time frame overall analysis of Forex pairs to give you my overall ideas of what's going on for this upcoming week. I'm going to be looking at the weekly, the daily, and the H4 timeframes. And I've prepared some notes for you guys so you can see what I'm thinking as just a little bit of a tool. This is totally free. This is for your benefit. This is just how I'm seeing things. We can see things differently. That's the beauty of analysis and trading. So if we see things differently, that's cool, right? This is just how I'm seeing what's going on in the market, and this is how I start to develop my trades. Now, you're going to notice that there's a few things missing from this analysis, like my refinements and some more of the precise technical approaches. And that's because this is a free resource for YouTube. I also teach a 3-day masterclass. I'll be hosting my last one of the year and potentially my last one of forever in October. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. If you're interested, click the link down below this video. You can go over to my website, check everything out, or shoot me a message on Instagram. I am at MightyFine, MIGHTYFINE. So without further ado, welcome back to Weekly Analysis. Let's get rolling. We're going to start off with the DXY, or the one that I use, which is the US dollar ticker, the Dow Jones FXCM dollar index. We're also going to look at AU, GU, GJ, EU, and EJ. These are kind of my main Forex pairs that I look at. I also watch domestic equities and I do some dividend investing in stocks. But for right now, the purpose of this is Forex, and these are the ones that we're going to look at. Nothing crazy, nothing super in depth, not a big list. These are just the ones that I'm looking at with myself and with my group that I trade live with every morning. So that's that. All right, let's dive in. So the dollar. Now remember, this is a reference pair. We aren't trading this directly. This is just to measure and gauge the strength and direction of the dollar on a high time frame so we can understand how the dollar has been performing against other major currencies, right? So it's a good thing to analyze. It's not my primary decision-making tool. It's secondary or even tertiary. I still look at the actual technicals of the chart that I'm looking to trade, but this is a good reference and I still like to mark it up. So what do we see? Well, on this big weekly time frame, we can see that price is pushing up, right? We're breaking ceilings, we're maintaining floors. Over here, you'll see that I have my structure is bearish. However, I believe that my point of structure for this time frame is over here. We're coming into this green zone. Green for me is weekly, red, daily, blue, H4. As we head into this green zone here, I believe we're going to retest this weekly lower high area right up top. This major supply that gave us this last extension leg to the downside. Now, clearly, as you can see here, our flow is bullish. Price action is in this big retracement, right, relative to this weekly lower high zone. And we can anticipate that price is going to move up into this and create something called a break or bounce scenario. Price will either break through and invalidate this weekly lower high, or it will bounce from this weekly lower high. Sellers will still be in control, and we'll see a transition and move to the downside, potentially with the attempt to expand into new lows. So we will know with a little bit more time. We just need to wait. We need to go look at some more details. On the weekly, we know that we are flowing bullish, which means we are in a retracement against this point of structure where we then get that break or bounce scenario. And that's all that I really care about right now. Weekly demand all the way down here. That's our level that we need to break to the upside. Cool. Let's move on to the daily. On our daily chart, we can see it's a little bit mixed. Overall, we are flowing to the upside. We're getting these big pushes on up. This is what I would constitute as our last major demand that gave us this extension to the upside. And that's a supply that would need to be broken. So what does this tell us? Well, if this is my daily demand and price breaks below that, we're getting a flow switch on the daily chart. If price can stay above it, we remain bullish. So that's that. If price breaks below both the daily demand and the weekly demand, you'll see that my red arrows become solid. And for me, that just indicates that I would start to consider a bearish position, right? Soft red arrow or opaque non-opaque arrow means that, yeah, it may be leaning bearish, but I'm not really looking for that trade, right? Solid one, I'm probably going to start leaning more bearish. Same deal here. So bullish above daily demand, and then definitely bullish if we get these two expansions to the upside on the dollar, right? On the dollar against other pairs. So keep that in mind. If we get a break below this daily demand, we could be seeing an early transition. However, I anticipate price is going to come up into that green area and then make its move, because that is the true origin of the weekly lower high supply. All right. So hot area up top to watch. Overall, I am seeing that the dollar is attempting to continue its little bullish reign here. There's a few areas that I'm going to be watching. I just mark out my lower time frame, like H4 supply and demand, to have an idea of what's happening as the market opens up. If it breaks demand, it's extending bearish. If it breaks supply, it's transitioning bullish. Very simple. Where did the last major pushes come from? Right over here. Okay, great. If it breaks this, it's going to go here. If it breaks this, it's going to go here. Right? I try and be very systematic and if-then thinking. And that's kind of what I'm trying to reflect to you guys here. So for the dollar, like I said, we are pushing bullish in terms of flow. We're heading into this area of major important liquidity. I anticipate a break or bounce scenario here. Will it happen this week? I don't know. We could just come into a big retracement down to the downside. This thing could keep pushing up. These are just the key levels that I'll be watching to start to monitor the health and situation of the dollar in our charts. So let's move on to AU. AU is slow but clean, and it has become one of my favorite pairs in all of Forex, certainly. Got some notes here for you. Pause it if you need to read those. I'm just going to kind of flow through what I'm seeing here on the high time frame. So on the weekly chart, we can see that we came into this weekly higher low area right down here. We got this little bit of a retest, and now we're seeing some transition to the upside, potentially. What we're going to come to find out is that we had a daily break of structure. We can also see that we broke this little minor supply here on the weekly chart. That would constitute a weekly break of flow for me. So we are pointing bullish in that way. My notes say that our structure is bullish on the weekly chart. I agree. We're still bullish. We've stayed above that. We've honored our higher low level. Our flow is bullish. We've retested that last higher low here, and now we're attempting this new bullish transition. It's looking good. I'm leaning bullish on this based on this big high time frame. As we head into the daily chart, we can see that, yeah, hey, we are getting a lot of bullish pressure here. We do have a daily break of flow to the upside, so buyers are in control. And this is where our last real major demand came in. So this is the level that I'm going to be watching most actively on this chart. Now, we have not had any real pullback in relation to this. So this upcoming week could be a pullback week where we then see a transition midway through, or it could just be all pullback all week, right? It's a bit overextended. I am anticipating that AU is going to continue to push above 74,800 and create new highs. It doesn't mean that's going to happen immediately, and price may need to come back down to grab some more orders to shift the balance further to the upside. So keep that in mind. Some areas that I will be watching ultimately are going to all be in relation to this leg. So sometimes you'll see on my chart that I have these gray boxes like this, and that is just indicating the flow leg that I'm looking to trade in relation to. Right, so these gray boxes just mark out your high time frame flow leg for me, or that's what I use them for, rather. And that shows me what I'm trading in relation to. So in relation to this whole gray move, I would look for a pullback and a transition and a continuation to the upside. It's pretty simple, right? As we make our way into the more detailed charts, looking at this, we just want to see where the last real, big injections of orders came from. And I think that that is right here on our H4 chart, right around 73,300. We have this H4 higher low. We got a bit of a pullback, nice extension to the upside. Now price is moving sideways a little bit, right? So if this moves sideways and transitions and pulls back against it, we could look for a retracement relative to our H4 structure and then a continuation to the upside. If price breaks below our H4 structure, I will wait for the red zone to be engaged, and I'll look for a break or bounce scenario there. If it breaks below both of these, then I need to reconsider my high time frame bias, and I may be looking for shorts, right? Very systematic, very plain. Anyways, not to digress too much, I'm still leaning bullish overall on these high time frames. I'm trying to be a little educational since we haven't been around for so long. You know, I'm excited to be back. Anyways, leaning bullish on AU, we really need a pullback. So what is going to tell us that we're getting a pullback? Well, we need this bullish flow to break in some fashion. And it looks like we started on Friday to try and break some demand that gave us that last push to the upside. So as the week opens up, if we were to get a transition here, like I said, we could look for a pullback in relation to this and then some form of transition and move to the upside. That would make sense, right? If price just keeps continuing on up to the upside, then we have nothing to do and we're still just waiting for a pullback, right? We're still just monitoring. So AU looks good, but it's not there quite yet. I'm going to be patient. I'm looking for a pullback relative to this bullish flow and structure. I'm looking for a new demand to be created. I'll get in on the transition. Great. Heading over to GU next. GU last week was pretty crazy. So I'll grab the notes here for you. 1 second. Sorry, I'm just going to condense that a little bit here. Take that off. Great. Okay, so on our weekly chart, what we can see here, right, is that if you follow my cursor, price gave us this last big push to the upside. And if we look at our OHLC values, we can see that this was a higher high that was printed, even though it's just a little baby wick. I count them. Now, this means that we broke a level of structure here. So we are transitionally bearish in terms of structure on this time frame. We can see that we're attempting to push into these new lows. And if we were to, you know, do one of these little boxes, it would probably be something like that, right? Our last major trend flow leg, that's what we're trading in relation to. So as price pulls back and goes bullish into here, we know we're in a pullback relative to this whole leg. And that's important to know. This is the low that we would target for an expansion to the downside. That's the level of supply that price must stay below to continue to look bearish. Anything above that, we look bullish. Very, very simple. Okay. So that's the kind of high time frame idea. We're leaning bearish because of this break of demand from April back here. And I'm sorry, April and back here as well, the expansion past the July lows. And then our flow is bearish overall, but we're in a retracement. We look like we're pushing back against that flow on this big high time frame. So we're going to go into the daily to get some details, and we're going to see roughly the same thing. We can see that our structure on the daily chart, oops, sorry, I think I had two. Our structure on the daily chart is indeed bearish. We are putting in a succession of lower highs and lower lows. Our flow is bullish after we broke this supply here, so we could be in a retracement relative to that gray circle. That's great. We may have an opportunity coming in soon. In my eyes, you can handle this one of two ways. One, you could look for a counter trend or against the gray box. You could look for a counter trend long position for price to come up into that area there. That would be opportunity number one. Opportunity number two would be a pro trend or with the gray box short position. Now, I would personally look to take that up here in this weekly supply and daily lower high area that I have marked out. However, if price were to do something like this and break below this daily demand without going any higher, and then maybe retrace relative to that, we could look for the transition in that area to then try and capitalize on and go short with the gray box, right? So there's a couple ways that we could handle this. You could take that counter trend long to try and extend this pullback to the upside a little bit, then look for a break or bounce scenario here. Or if it decided to go bearish right away, we would just have to wait for that break of demand and then a new retest relative to that. So it's looking good. It looks like there's going to be some opportunities on GU this week. I'm excited, but we do just need to be patient and wait for these big high time frame supply and demand levels to engage so we can start to make some smart decisions, right? As we look into our H4, we can see that GU is very bullish in terms of structure and flow, right? Pretty much all last week, it was pushing up to the upside, even if it was a little slow in certain times. We are pushing on up. If price breaks below this, I'll look for a retest of that daily demand. right? So this would be the first hint that bears may be coming into control. Now, if this is honored and price just keeps on going, we know buyers are in control, and we'll wait for that green zone up top, right? We could look for a retest relative to maybe this H4 demand here. This would be one area where you could look for a retest. Another area would be this daily demand all the way down here, right? So 1, 2, both areas where if you were to see a bullish transition, you could look for a pro flow trade up into this green zone around 138800. All right, GJ, another one of the favorite pairs. Now, GJ is a little bit of an anomaly right now. It's a bit of a tumultuous situation. The reason why I say that is, look at that doink of a candle right there. That thing's fat, man. This thing has been going bullish, and I don't just mean a little bit bullish. I mean GJ full mast bullish for like 9 days straight. No pullbacks. This thing's been going nuts, right? That big bullish move broke us out of this big high time frame consolidation that we had here between these two green zones. It also expanded our overall trend all the way back from early to mid 2020. So very, very bullish. It was pretty undecided for a while there, but last week things definitely showed up. So I am bullish across my time frames all the way down. I don't need to say anything else besides that for my notes. And that's why they're so kind of barren over here. Let's look at the details a little bit and figure out how we might be able to take advantage of this. So if we know that our gray box represents our overall bullish leg here, the areas that we may want to consider a pullback into would be something like our last major daily demand, right? This would be a very sensible area where if price came back or started a pullback, we could look for something like this. Now, another place you may want to consider is this supply that was broken. And if we started to create demand in that area, we don't have anything to say, oh yeah, it would make sense if it happened, right here or right here or right here. We don't have that. What we would have to do is wait for a pullback and see a transition start and then try and take advantage of that. So we could pay attention to this area as well. If supply turned into demand, that would be one area. I would prefer to look towards this daily demand right here, unless I had something on a slightly smaller but still high time frame chart like my H4, right? Overall, I'm just waiting for a pullback in relation to this big bullish move here. Because we haven't gotten one, and we know that if this is going to keep on going, there needs to be new orders injected with the purpose of an expansion or further appreciation for the pound against the yen, right? So let's go look at the H4. Let's see if we can get some more technical details on where we might be able to trade this. Most immediately, I think that we would want to watch that H4 demand, the area that gave us that last big push to the upside. Now, if you trade a GJ for a while, you know that that might just be a flicker. Price could pull back, break below this and pull back in relation to this whole dang thing, right? So this is just an area that I would watch for. I would wait for a pretty confirmed transition before trying to take advantage of anything in this area, but it is a good area nonetheless. I don't like any of this. This is just sideways movement. And I still would highly prefer this daily area down here. But this is one, and that is two. I'm really just waiting for something like this H4 demand to break. And the reason why I say that is that would start my high time frame pullback, right? Where we would then see a pullback in relation to this overall very, very, very bullish kind of overextended move. And then we could look to take that pro trend trade further down here. Okay. So that's that for GJ. Let's move into EU. EU it's looking better. It's looking good this week, I think. We had this big weekly break of structure here. This is what I had as my weekly high or low, created these last highs up here, and I validated this as a real pullback with my method. So now we've broken that structure, and we're looking for this potential pullback in relation to, again, this gray box right here. On my weekly notes over here, you'll see that our weekly high or low was broken. Sorry, not last week, but the week 2 weeks back. Structure is not confirmed bearish because we do not have a new lower high to lower low after the break of structure, but it is certainly leaning bearish. Our flow is bearish on this weekly time frame as well. I marked out my weekly supply here, and then I just left this green box on to show you that we had broken that whole zone right there, right? Just for visual demonstration. Cool. On our daily chart, we can see that this is our big leg to the downside here. We have broken some supply here as well, which is very important. You'll notice that I'm sort of reading that as, maybe we're starting a pullback. Maybe we're getting a transition and we'll start that pullback in relation to this whole thing. That would make a lot of sense with GU and AU as well. They're starting to say the same story, right? So on our daily, our structure is bearish. Our flow is transitional because we broke this supply right here. And this could be a hint that our smaller time frames are transitioning. Could be. If price can stay above this demand, if price can create a new demand and start going higher, our flow is looking bullish, and that's confirming we're moving further to the upside in a retracement relative to this gray box. Okay, so could indicate a pullback. We'll just keep on watching this. This is going to be a good one. It may not set up into London Monday, but it may set up into New York or North America Monday. So we'll watch. As we head into our H4 with this in mind, I think we can start to develop a plan. Here's what it is. One, we get a pullback in relation to this flow that broke our daily supply right here, right? So we get a pullback in relation to this right here, boom. And that would be something like this, where we get then, all right, bullish move, we could look for a long opportunity here. Now below this H4 level, like we talked about, it's very bearish. These are counter trend ideas, so be careful with them, right? If price breaks above the supply and out of this little consolidation, we may just look for a retest of the level that broke us out of the supply. That could be a continuation idea as well. As we move up, if we start to move up and start to pull back in relation to that, some areas that I would watch for, sellers to step back in would obviously be something like that. And then maybe something over here as well, just because this is the last really high time frame, major supply where we got a big push from. Okay, so 1, 2 to the upside. Those are both areas to watch for that bullish pullback to stop, and those bears, the dominant high time frame team, to kick back in. EURJPY, the last one on our list for this week. On our weekly time frame, we are bullish overall. This is our higher low right here, and now you can see we are breaking that supply with another massive week for EJ, very similar to GJ. Yen weakness came in big time. On our weekly, nothing much really, right? We're just looking for price to move up into this and then expand the trend. We're just looking for new highs to be created. It's very overextended here. We didn't really have much of a pullback. So intra-week, I think we're looking for a pullback in relation to this move right here. And we're just gonna have to be a little bit patient, but it could be really good, right? This daily demand is where I would love to take my trade. Our structure is sort of undecided on EJ just because we were in this big ugly thing. On our daily, it's looking bullish. I'm leaning bullish across the board. I wouldn't say it's fully undecided. I misspoke. Weekly, definitely bullish. Our daily is definitely leaning very bullish. I would like to see a new demand and a new higher low to higher high created here. That would really confirm it for me, but I'm definitely leaning bullish on this because of the volume and the direction that it's pointing. We can see that this, all these buy orders that came in this consolidation range, they broke the balance and they pushed that up to the upside. There was enough liquidity grab that price pushed up to the upside and the buyers took control. As we move into our intraday charts, this is what I'll be watching most immediately. If price breaks this H4 demand, I know we're pulling back towards my red zone, and then I can anticipate that I might get a trade that day or the next. I will watch the H4 demand for any form of transition because I do think that this is pro-flow, pro-trend. Could look for a breaker bounce scenario here with a long position option, or if price breaks below it, we'll look for a long position here. If price breaks below both, we need to reconsider our bias because we're back into this range. And that is really it in terms of my analysis on these pairs for the week. Obviously, there's a little bit more work that I need to do on my charts and more work for you to do on your charts. But if you want to figure out how I do what I do, head over to that link in my bio down below. Go check out my website. If you have questions, ask me questions. I'm here to answer them. I'm not going to be here forever. I really do want to help people. And that's why I do my 3-day masterclass. Like I said, it's going to be the last one of the year, possibly the last one forever, or at least until the price goes up. So You know, reach out if you have any questions or anything. If you want to join me, I highly suggest you do. I've got 29 reviews on Trustpilot from happy students. I've got a handful of six-figure funded traders in my circle, my Discord group. I run live sessions every single day. It's cheap and it's in great value. So thanks for tuning in. I'll be doing these weekly analysis, you know, more often. I'll be dropping some stuff as well on YouTube, just basic stuff for those of you trying to learn about price action. Until next week, trade smart, trade safe, and have a mighty fine week.